Blackberries. Should I have some blackberries?
Yeah.
Here. Let me get you some. Ooh. That's a big one right there. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So these are blackberries. Our blackberries tend to not... Blackberries are supposed to winter over, so they get your best growth on your second year canes. But I've never really been able to get them to survive a winter, and so we always end up starting with new growth every year. And so they're full of berries, a lot of these red berries, but you know, some black ones. And here it is, it's end of September, almost October. And you'll get some, but they'll be covered with berries that just never mature, which is kind of a shame. But makes for some nice eating in September and October, depending on how early the frost is. If you get a hot enough summer, they'll do a little better. But this was not a real hot summer, so we don't get a lot of blackberries. Just kind of enough to eat. They're still flowering back here, so those will never do anything. And most of these red ones here won't, because they're just going to start getting too cool at night. But if they come off fairly easy, that usually means they're ripe. Here you go. Want another one? Here you go. There we go. Get some more. Oop, that one had a bug on it. Grasshopper. Yeah, right there. We don't want to eat him though. Here, want another one? Oh, there he goes. There you go. Let's see if this one's ripe. That one's not quite ripe. Another one? Yeah. There you go. Get the low-hanging ones. Here. That's a good one. Here, let me have that one. You take that big one. That's a good one. You do have to kind of watch for bugs here. What are you doing? Here, why don't you bring it over here? Pick it up. Just pick it up and bring it here. Okay. All right.
A camera.
Yeah, camera.
A big one.
Here is the asparagus patch. Asparagus is all done this year, but as you can tell, we have a lot of asparagus. 3 rows of this. So here in Wisconsin, we get our asparagus ready it's usually the last week in April. Pretty much every year it's the last week in April, give or take, maybe a week or a few days. You want to get up here? Want to ride? All right, come here. Oh man. So here in so we get asparagus here last week in April, and if you keep it picked, you're gonna have it right up until about the 4th of July, and then it's getting pretty hot, wants to seed out. But if you keep it picked, you can have, as you can imagine, we get pretty sick of asparagus by the end of the year. And then down there we have black raspberry and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of a tour of the garden. So yeah, you want to say goodbye? You wave? You wave? I guess not. This area over here is going to be a future garden area. I don't know if I'm going to get it worked up this fall. It's going to be long, narrow strips with grass walkways in between them, but going to move some garden beds over here. Might get some garlic in this fall. And so over here is where we planted the plum trees. So let's go take a look at the plum trees. You coming along? That grass is getting kind of tall. Good job, little girl. You want to hold Dad's hand? Okay. So we'll go over here. Looks like they kind of got a little brown, but there's usually some shocks. There's one right there. This one looks okay. I think they'll be okay. It's late in the year. They'll probably Suffer a little bit, but they shouldn't die. There's one there. What's he doing? What's that silly dog doing? This one, that one doesn't look very good. Let's see, how about this one? I think this one will be okay. It seems green. Yeah. Yep, okay, and there's one right over here. This one seems like it's okay. Maybe I should give him some water. Should we give him some water this weekend? And you can see all the, it's sort of a shame. I hate to cut them off, but this whole area in here is little plum trees. And I've concluded that they grow up out of the roots. I'll have to check that before I publish it. But I don't think they grow from plums, or maybe they can grow from plums. But it seems like they can also grow up out of the roots in the ground. So these things are pretty thorny. They'll get you. You don't want to, see if I can get in there. They got some pretty significant thorns on them. So you don't want to, you gotta be careful mowing under them and walking under them. I gotta trim some limbs this year before next summer. But now I'll be able to mow these off. We transplanted, I think 8 of them. Let's go see how these ones down here are doing. This one looks pretty good. Here's one here. Here's one right here. Yeah. This is very nice soil down here. What? Yeah. This is nice soil down here. This used to be a corral area for cattle. And so it has a lot of, that one looks really good. A lot of compost. But there you can see our plum trees. These are probably, and these were all like the same size when we planted them. And these are probably, must be 5-6 years old. These are a wild plum that have kind of been domesticated a little bit. We got them from an organic farming friend of ours that raises produce. So we planted those down here. They seem to do pretty good, even though they're, you know, shaded quite a bit on the south side from those large maple trees. It doesn't seem to hurt them, which is probably pretty consistent with how they grow in nature, which is kind of in the shady areas along the woods and stuff. So yeah, so that's the plums. Might plant some more fruit trees down here yet this fall, or certainly next year, but gonna kind of turn this back into produce and gardening instead of pasture and hay, now that we don't have the milk cow and as many cows around here. So yeah. wanted to show you guys a little bit what's going on here. So this here, you can see the row of hay bales. This is the back side of what's traditionally been our barn and area for the cows and calves when we get calves, or we've had pigs in here too. This is the first time I put the hay on the back side here. Otherwise it's always been closer to the house, which is kind of an eyesore. And then this area out here behind me has been our gardens in the past, and you can kind of see here we did not even plow it this year or last year, but this is, you know, they're about 14 foot wide and there's strips that go around, and then we've in the past rotated, you know, potatoes, sweet corn, squash, melons. We've had strawberries out here, all that kind of stuff. But the problem with this area here, you can see behind me, is the house is back there and the garden is out here, and it is difficult with little kids to garden this way. And you know, it's just a little out of sight, out of mind. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this more of the cow yard here. Plus, the nice thing is that the way it was before, we had our cow yard there, and then we kind of had the garden here in the middle, and so you always had to route cows around it to get the cows out to the pastures. And so if we move the cows here, it'll be a little more natural to run them down to the different pastures that we rotate. And then basically right behind me here now, you can see here, this is the compost pile. But behind me here is we're gonna move the gardens a little bit over to here, and they'll be much more accessible to the house. And huh? Yeah. So anyway, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the gardens, at least some of the gardens from over there, we're gonna make this pasture and hay behind us, and then we're gonna do some gardening here, at least probably for the next few years while our kids are young. This is our youngest here. So I wanted to show you guys our apple trees here. So this one right behind me here is one of our best trees in terms of flavor. We've had, it's really sad to see all the apples on the ground, but we can only use so much of them, and we eat a lot of them, don't we, Lizzie? Yep. There's still a lot of apples on that tree. And then there's this tree here. I was afraid this tree was gonna break off this because it was so overloaded. It's lost enough apples now, it's not sagging so much, but I might have to trim some limbs because it was really heavy with apples this year. I think this is another one like that first one. This says these are really sweet apples. And then I'll take you around here. These are kind of a yellow delicious here, I think. They're golden delicious. So sweet. Some apples are a little more tart than others. Here's another golden delicious on here. I'm surprised they stay on there as long. There isn't near as many of these on the ground as some of the red apples. This is more of a tart apple here. I'm not sure the varieties. We got like 2 variety packs when we planted these probably 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. They've gotten pretty big. They're supposed to be dwarfs and semi-dwarfs. This one here has kind of gotten shaded out and has had a limb break off this year, so I may end up taking this one out. Not sure, but I stopped pruning them a couple years ago, and when I stopped pruning them, the production went crazy. So I don't know, you tell me. I know you're supposed to prune trees, but I stopped pruning them, and they're just so good. So this is one of our best apples here. We've been making a lot of we got a big dehydrator, so we've been making a lot of dehydrated apples. Actually, one of our boys, our 12-year-old boy, has been making a lot of that. It's tough right now with the ages of our kids and our schedules to make a lot of applesauce. It's sort of a shame, but we've been taking them down dumping them down below the house, and we have a lot of deer visit now, and so we've been getting trail cam pictures of that, so I'll probably include some of those. But we had a great apple crop last year and this year, and it's unusual to get back-to-back really good apple crops, at least been in my experience. So yeah, we're very thankful to have the apples here. Sometimes it's a bit pain to have them close to the house like that, because our house is right here. Because you know, they're on the ground, and then you get like the bees and stuff around. But it is super handy to pick them and to just go out and get some for eating. You know, these kind of got like a scabby thing on them, but it doesn't really hurt anything. They don't really have much for worms unless they hit the ground. So yeah, so we don't do any spraying or anything like that. We just kind of, and they seem to do okay. But anyway, yeah, so that's our little tiny apple orchard. We were transplanting plums last weekend. I'm gonna go maybe walk down and see how the plums are doing. I think it was a good week for them. It wasn't very hot and all that, so maybe we'll go down and check out the plums. For anyone that's interested, these are some of the, I'm going to talk about some of the trees we have around here. So these ones that kind of have this brown, I guess they're seed pods of some sort. Here's a broken one. This came down in a storm this year. And this one here. These are box elder trees, and they're a junk tree. They really are. You could see they grow kind of on the edges of woods, and they tend to they'll really like reach out into the opening, and so they're kind of a menace. Although I actually like to burn them for firewood. Most of the firewood that I burn is actually box elder, because it's plentiful, and I'm always cutting these things down, or you know, like that, you know, if tree limbs break off, and then it, you know, it actually splits pretty nice, and it doesn't burn really hot. Our house is pretty small, and the wood heat doesn't really take a lot to warm our house. Here's some walnut trees. They've mostly lost their limbs. You can see walnut trees here. That's a nice walnut tree. These were probably planted by squirrels years ago. You can see all the black walnuts under it there. This one back here, that's a hickory tree. I had a big brush pile down there. This whole area in here used to be nothing but brush and stuff, and so I think I had a bulldozer in here, and we cut a lot of brush out of here and had a pile there, and I burnt it one time, and it was super hot, and it kind of scorched that tree. Fortunately, it didn't hurt the big oak tree over here, which I'm going to show you in a second. So here's where we've been putting the apples, and my boy's got his trail camera set up here, so we're probably setting that off. He'll be excited, only to be disappointed to find out it's just Dad taking video. So this is some, if you see here, let's see if I can get an angle on here. If you kind of look down that way, there's a line of about 6 or 7 of these massive oak trees. This one I measured one time, and I estimated this tree is, what did I figure, 170 years old. It's old. It's really old. Well over 100 years old. Beautiful tree. It's probably my favorite tree on the property. And like I said, this was all kind of brush when we moved in here, so we've been steadily clearing it out. And this trail was here for a long time, and I didn't even realize it was here when we bought the property until I started walking around in the winter and I could see it, and so we cleared out. There was a lot of little trees and stuff in that. Another oak tree. The dog we had before Mater there is buried under that tree. Another walnut tree. This here's a wild apple tree. The deer They've kind of got it picked clean, but they like to come down here and eat the apples. Let's see, what else we got here?
Bigger.
Yeah. So this kind of comes back to our woodlot here. This area over here is I would say my favorite part on the property. Got some, I guess these are birch trees. And then these, can't remember what these white ones are. It's kind of a poplar. And then here you can kind of see that line of oak trees, massive oak trees, which means that this area here to the left was all farmed at one point. And so this was sort of the edge of, you could sort of see here where the land tapers down. So this would have been the edge of what was farmed years ago, and this is all grown up here. It probably became kind of a pain to farm all the way back here in this corner, and so they just, you know, it's just grown up. Had a big limb on one of these oak trees bust off this spring, I think it was, or summer. I think it was this year. So that needs to get cut up for next year. And what we do, well, let me show you something here. I wonder if he saw the deer. Must have chased a squirrel up the tree. So here it kind of drops down in there, down into our valley. And then this area back here is, I just find very peaceful. And so we pull our firewood up here and cut it up, and I got our wagon in the background there. So this is our trail. This is where we, if you watch any of the us riding four-wheeler, this is where we ride. And here you can see, again, you can kind of see the distinct line of where the edge of the farm fields used to be. We got these big oak trees, and there's a big old cherry tree back here. And so this area here, I'm kind of steadily going to thin this out quite a bit, just so that the better trees can grow. But this is one of my favorite areas in the property here. One of the things that I struggle with as a homesteader is what to do with the wood property that we have, which is very nice. Here it tends to be more open. This area down here is pretty shaded. Here's a big oak tree. This here is a big cherry tree. I'm surprised it hasn't blown over. I don't think it's hollow yet. I've been thinking about taking this cherry tree down and sawing it, but for now I'm going to leave it. But this area down here, you know, like this area in here is mostly just brush and weeds. And I've had cattle in here before. I have a fence down there, which is hard to maintain because tree limbs are always falling down on it. But I have pastured this in the past, and I've had, yeah, I've had, you know, I've had cattle in here, and it's sort of nice to have it kind of knocked down, but then you really don't get deer, which if you're gardening, that's actually not so bad, not to have deer pressure too much. But yeah, so for me, I struggle with what to do with the woods. Right now it's more for recreation and enjoyment, and I don't think I'm gonna pasture the cows in it that much because they really don't get much feed value out of it. Maybe select areas, maybe down the middle where the trails are at, so it's easier to go out for walks and stuff. But even this here, like this area down here, I kind of call this Sherwood here. It's just so dense. This is where the few of the hard maples on our property is right here in this area. I don't have enough of them that I've tapped any maple syrup yet, but maybe in the future. There's kind of a lot of junk down in here. This used to be where they dumped all their farm junk and stuff like that in the past. And here again, like this all used to be probably, oh gosh, out 40, 50 feet was all sumacs in here. I don't know if I got it. I've gotten pretty much all the sumacs out here, so I can't really show you. I guess there's some smaller sumacs growing up here. I'll show you if we get up there. But the sumacs will also kind of invade this out here, and you can't really do anything with it. You can't walk through them. So we had a big bobcat out here the one day, and the one summer, and I cleared all these sumac out and bush and burned it, and then you know, we've been pasturing and mowing and stuff. But you got to stay on it. Like here, you can see here where nature kind of comes back, and it's always trying to grow back out into your pastures and hay fields. So you kind of got to maintain your perimeters and your edges. Yeah, so those sumacs I was telling you about, that's these things right here. They grow up out of the roots, and I did not get a chance to run the tractor and the brush mower on it this year, so they've kind of grown up. But this was the area, this whole area in here where, oh, it must have been out another 50, 60 feet, was all sumacs. And I finally kind of got it seeded back down the last couple of years, starting to grow a little bit, but you gotta kind of keep mowing that sumac down in order to stop it.